Good evening, all. For some reason, I feel like I should say that in an Alfred Hitchcock voice. Good evening, all. Tonight's story of murder and mayhem. No. Uh, anyway, tonight's review is going to be of one of the strangest books that Philip K. Dick ever wrote, and that's saying a lot if you know the work of Philip K. Dick. That is 1974's Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. It's significant that this book came out in 1974 because it is the first book that came out after the events that PKD refers to as 2-374, where he claims he was struck by this mysterious pink laser beam that showed him a series of very bizarre images, which at first he couldn't make head or tail of, and then he slowly started to realize that they contained some sort of arcane information or some sort of what mystics refer to as gnosis, which is hidden knowledge. But anyway, this book actually it got the John W. Campbell Award for the best science fiction novel of 1974, and it was nominated for a Nebula in 1974, and a Hugo also in 75, but it did not win those two. But it did win the John W. Campbell Award. For those who don't know, John W. Campbell Sr. was the editor of Astounding, one of the great science fiction magazines of the 50s and 60s and 70s. Without giving out away the entire book, I'll give you just a précis of the plot. It is set in a dystopian world in 1988, where the United States is now a quote-unquote police state after a second American Civil War. It's run between two groups, the National Guards, who are called the Nats, and the police, who are U.S. police, who are called the PALs, P-O-L-S. And it's a dictatorship, and anybody who rebels is put into a forced labor camp. And the only people who even think about rebellion are students who live in these sort of underground bunkers and are hiding out, and there aren't very many of them. Most black people have been eliminated by this totalitarian government. They're very rare, and there's a singer who's also a television star named Jason Taverner, and he wakes up one day after he's gone on, I guess, like a drug bender of some sort, and nobody seems to know who he is. That they don't know that he's this famous singer and TV star, because in this world where he wakes up into, he's not. And more frighteningly, he does not have any government-issued ID. And if you don't have government-issued ID, you can be arrested and thrown into one of these forced labor camps by the police, who are everywhere, and they have informants everywhere. Basically, everybody who he turns to try to help him in this book is a fink, is some sort of a rat. And they're planning tracking devices on him. Even his girlfriend is someone who he cannot trust. And a bizarre series of incidents take place where he's trying to his girlfriend Heather Hart is also a singer, and this again is another example of the quote-unquote dark-haired girl who appears quite often in PKD's works and is a reference to his twin sister who passed away when she was only 4 days old. That's rather a sad story in that they were born premature, and they were born during the Great Depression. Their parents were not rich, and his mother could really only afford to feed one of the infants. And since Phil, although he was still undersized, was the bigger of the two, she fed him more, and he survived, and Jane, his sister, did not. And he always felt terribly guilty about that throughout his entire life. He felt like something was missing. He felt like he should have died and his sister should have lived. They are, in fact, buried together, and their tombstone says twins, which is sort of nice. And there's a picture of a cat on it as well, which I don't know what that relates to. It's just it's interesting that there's a cat on their tombstone. But anyway, in this book, Heather Hart is also somebody who doesn't recognize him in this new world that he wakes up into, and he's trying to find her. All these sort of bizarre things happen. A woman offers him sanctuary, but only if he'll sleep with her, and he does, and then it turns out she's a rat too, and turns him over to the police. And at the police station, they mistake him for someone else named Jason Tavern, who's a mechanic. And he goes along with this because Jason Tavern has a police ID. And now he can get around, and he tries to lie low, and he keeps meeting these strange people. Uh, the policeman, General Felix Buckman, is the person who the title refers to, because he's sort of a sympathetic policeman, which is unusual in this strange world. And he kind of he interrogates Taverner and realizes what's happened, and he decides not to pursue him. That he's not bad just because he doesn't remember who he is, and he thinks he's maybe part of the resistance, but he's not sure. He wants to see if he can use him to sort of ferret out who some of these rebels are. So he lets him go and meet this. He meets Alice Buckman, who is Felix Buckman's sister, who is referred to as "quote unquote" hypersexual. She's also his lover, so there's an incest angle there. But something terrible happens. She dies, and only her skeleton remains. And it turns out she was on this experimental drug, and the experimental drug caused him, Jason Taverner, because he had met her, to experience a false reality, and that's the reality where nobody knows who he is. And then drugs called KR3, and then finally, Felix comes back and finds out about the death of his sister, and he has a nervous breakdown. And then at the end of the novel, he goes to Borneo and is assassinated after writing an expose of the global police apparatus. Jason Taverner is cleared of all charges. He dies of old age. Heather Hart abandons her music career and becomes a recluse. And KR3, the trials are canceled. It's decided that it's too dangerous. And then the revolutionary students give up and voluntarily enter the labor camps, but they later dwindle away and close down because the government no longer poses a threat, because it just figures out that it's not worth pursuing. It's a very strange, trippy novel, and I didn't tell you half the things that go on because I think you should read it. Really quite good, and I do highly recommend it. Again, Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said, from 1974.